Welcome to Pulse of Tech by SEEP.
Hi, I'm Akash, currently sitting advising few IPO-bound companies, also former managing director JP Morgan, also entrepreneur myself, been exited to listed firms, and also an ex-nVidia, Microsoft, Motorola and Nokia.
Hello everyone, we are back again with yet another pulse-pounding episode of Pulse of Tech by SEEP, your ultimate guide in the ever-evolving world of tech and leadership in Pune. I am Sonal Sahu, having 1.5 decades of experience in building data warehousing and BI solutions. I've been primarily into the data and AI space and currently heading the BI practice in one of the leading IT organizations in Pune. Today, we have with us Akash Sureka, an advisor to IPO-bound companies and angel investor. Hello and welcome, Akash. So AI is clearly having its moment right now and being one of the most hot buzzwords these days, right?
Yeah.
With your immense experience in IT, how do you think companies are adopting AI, be it in different sectors like telecom, BFSI, healthcare? How are they leveraging it uniquely?
I think before answering that question, let me contextualize AI, right? So I think pre-Gen AI world, which is pre-ChatGPT world, we had AI existing. Machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, and things like those. And they were largely built around data modeling and then running certain algorithms around it, and then coming out certain predictions, certain scorings, certain other outcomes, and things like those, right? So these were non-generative use cases, I would say. ChatGPT came in, it was largely textual oriented, language oriented, I would say, which was generative sort of a phenomenon. So I think there were certain enterprises who were already going with earlier machine learning, deep learning, and things like those, neural networks for document purposes and things like those, right? ChatGPT came in, it enhanced the language modeling largely because there were large transformers built, as you know. And then enterprises were looking at, there is one area which they were doing earlier. It was more experimental, very exploratory. Outcomes were not defined very stringently and things like those, right? But here is ChatGPT came in, it was already built, it was already ready, and all you have to do figure out is what use case you want to implement it, right? And hence what happened is the adoption of ChatGPT basis large language model became no-brainer for enterprises to start quickly using it, adopting it, running it for certain use cases. And the other one which was already going on forward, that still goes on, right? Which was based on machine learning, which was largely data-oriented, non-Gen AI use cases. So I think from the large language model, because it's essentially built around language, enterprises started looking at what are those use cases which are language oriented. And some of the use cases are email conversations. Some of the use cases are voice conversations on customer service. Some of the use cases are chatbot conversations for customer support again. Some of them are FAQs for your employees. Some of them are documents which are lying in your enterprise and you want to utilize them for various purposes, marketing research purposes, competitive analysis purposes, and things like those. So I think enterprises are saying, hey, what are those immediate use cases I can deploy? Obviously, there is cost to it. It's not cheap. Though now recently, in past few days, the cost is going down for using those large language models. So some of these areas like customer service in BFSI, in insurances, in telecom companies, many others, customer service becomes the most natural and widely adopted use case for AI because it's all language based. You can learn sentiments about your customer when you're talking to, whether it's voice or whether it's textual. You can get a lot of data insights of previous conversations with that particular client of yours or your user of yours. And then it helps agent to give a better support to the end customer because he or she has all of this now intelligence built around. And that also helps to do post analysis of your conversations. You can do cross sell, you can do upsell, you can find out how painful that conversation was. Do you want to give more loyalty? Do you want to give more offers? You want to give better conversations next time. You want to reach out proactively basis your last conversation. So I think all those are the immediate use cases which some of these enterprises are deploying. BFSI, also has this large customer support, as you know, but they're also utilizing for various other purposes as well, right? For internal purposes, there's a lot of compliances which BFSI has to go through. So we're simplifying compliances not only for internal users but for external purposes also. They're also utilizing it for risk management purposes, as an example, right? I mean, the risk management comes at the top in any financial institution because of the regulatory pressures, right? So how do you use AI to the advantage by making sure that you are compliant faster and better using AI with a lot of data which also exists, and that's also built on lots of text, right? As an example, similar companies, not only BFSI but other verticals, also are utilizing how do you use your how do you improve your employee experiences basis a lot of data which exists, which could be textual data, and there kind of you can simply write queries, get details about your payroll, get details about HR system, you get details about your leave policy, you can summarize some of your policies and things like those, right? So I think both internal, external, some of those use cases are getting deployed in many areas, and people are finding good outcomes of it. But I think, as you rightly said, I think it's still an early journey. Some use cases has been direct, but there are many other areas where people are still doing spray and pray, and people they've not figured out what's the right use case and what's the right outcome and what's the right ROI. I think that's the state of enterprise adopting AI. Few areas very direct, a lot of other areas is still indirect, and people are still figuring out. And obviously, it's very costly also by the time. As you know, the hardware is super expensive. Software is getting cheaper. As I was saying recently, in past few days, the per token cost is going down. People have dramatically reduced the cost so that enterprise can adopt it faster. So that part is already commoditized. Hardware, maybe it will find a balance in some time. And I feel from now onwards it will be like a steady journey as opposed to just rushing on it, and it will be incremental ROI where enterprises would want to get out of it. I think that's kind of short and sweet sort of state of what enterprise and how they're adopting AI right now. So
Okay. Yeah, well said. So how about, you talked about data, right? So how are companies, blending their existing product strategies to get blended with the AI, right? How are and what crucial role does data play into all of this?
Yeah. See, data has always been the baseline of all of this, right? The LLM had an advantage because they pre-trained it on a lot of data, dictionary data, web content data, scraping a lot of open data and things like those, right? So they got an advantage because they invested a lot in doing it from last 3, 4, 5 years and have built those pre-models. But some enterprise have a maturity curve in their data sort of platform. Many enterprises are not having that maturity on their data platforms, right? Many times they don't know where the data exists. There are data access issues. It is distributed heavily in the organization. Everybody is having its own data. Right, and there's no data lake implemented, there's no data warehouse implemented, and things like those. I think it's even if you have the data, it's not clean to an extent, and things like those, right? So I think for sure, no-brainer, data plays a very critical role in having the right AI outcome, right? I mean, I would say the enterprise needs to make sure that the data strategy is right first before they jump into an AI strategy. Right, unless they feel that some part of data is an immediate kind of ingestion to the pre-trained models, wherein the outcomes are smaller, the use cases are smaller. You could still go with that approach, but I think otherwise, data strategy comes first, AI strategy comes next. I think that's how enterprises are also realizing it. People are maturing their data platforms in various ways. And they're using technologies to their advantage, like Databricks of the world, Snowflakes of the world. They're emerging players in that area as well. People are getting data in the right shape, so then they can start implementing AI very quickly, right? So, which is good. I think the cycle of data platform implementations are reducing now. The investments are happening a lot in that area, and I think as that matures, I think the enterprise AI adoption, to your previous question, will slightly become more faster than what it is today.
Right, correct. No wonder they say that, in God only we may trust, rest all others should bring data.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you are an angel investor as well and you work with a lot of VCs, where do you think are VCs more investing in terms of the technology sectors? What is your take on that?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think there was this wave wherein a lot of investment happened in the LLM layer, right? You could see a lot of investments, obviously, in OpenAI, in Anthropics of the world, and things like those, Hugging Face. Then there was a second wave of investment which happened in people creating generative use cases, which is how do you create images, how do you create videos, how do you create presentations, how do you create games out of stories, and things like those, right? So there was a lot of investment happened in that area as well, and that's how companies like Midjourney, Hugging Face, and things like those, they have got a lot of money as well. Thirdly, I think the other interesting area where the investments are happening is the way ChatGPT turned around for the digital world. How do you have similar framework and model for the hardware world, which is primarily the robotics world, right?
Correct.
So you're seeing people investing into how robots can become more humans, which are humanoids in a way, what they're called as, and how do you make them intelligent, wherein they can act in real time, basis different objects, basis different hindrances they come around, basis things they're handling, so that they don't need constant training from humans and they can take decisions on their own. And you would have seen certain innovations from DeepMind, from Boston Dynamics, from Tesla's, maybe they're creating new robots, which is Optimus, and there are many other innovations coming wherein people are investing in the software piece of that primarily, and then people are also investing into the hardware piece of it, which are making robots more human, which are humanoids, right? I think there's three areas where the large investments continue to happen. And then there are smaller investments which are happening in SaaS products. When I say SaaS, which are truly AI, how do you automate your sales? How do you automate some of your marketing? How do you create nicer emails? How do you create nicer presentations for your customer? How do you create good creatives, as an example? So there's a lot of investment happening in marketing AI companies. Similarly, in sales AI companies, how do you get insights from your conversations? How do you score your leads? How do you auto-generate some of the client emails? How do you generate some collaterals around it? How do you process refunds for your clients, which are automated in nature? So I think there are bits and pieces of, I would say, use case specific products, which is in the application layer, wherein the investments are happening, because investors are looking at, hey, can AI disrupt the existing SaaS products in different ways, right? So you would have a workflow driven CRM product, but then can you build an AI based sales or a CRM product which is completely different than what it exists today, right? As an example, basis this data, basis AI, basis different insights, more automated in a way, right? As an example. So I think that's another area where people are looking for investing. The other area of investments are also on the infrastructure layer, right? How do you optimize the infrastructure for AI, which also includes a lot of tools, which is MLOps, as one of the categories. There's still a lot to be done over there. Data modeling automation. I myself invested into a company who would reduce the need of data engineers from, let's say, 10 to 2, right? Another interesting company I've invested in is who automates prompt, basically, right? For AI, for ChatGPTs of the world, if you want to fine tune, you have to inject prompts, right? To suit to your use cases. So I think for that you require a lot of prompt engineers. Right? This company is reducing the dependency on a lot of prompt engineers. So I think those are another infrastructure layer, I would say, investments wherein people are investing. And I think last one, in my opinion, I think one is the horizontal LLMs investments have happened a lot, right? And that has matured now, right? I mean, it's pretty difficult for anybody coming up with a new language model and asking for hundreds of millions of dollars, even tens of millions of dollars. You know that, right? You've been working with a lot of your clients.
Exactly. It's like every morning when you wake up, there's a new model that's already out there.
Yeah, correct. And I think some of these early players, OpenAI, Anthropic, they have taken a lead anyway. They've gone Mistral AI, Llama models, and they're like very matured in their journey now. So anybody coming up newly and then reaching to that stage and asking for money is very difficult, right? However, custom models for certain use cases, I think that's where some of the investments will continue to happen. Provided the opportunity for those models is very huge, right? Because once it's custom, it's limited anyway, but in terms of vertical or things like those, but that has to have a sizable opportunity, right? I mean that vertical has to be sizable where you're trying to implement a model.
Yeah, like how you have SLMs today.
Correct. That's right. Now the only problem with small models that will start coming in is that these large models itself are becoming so efficient, right? As you would know, this Google Gamma 2, essentially they've compressed a large model into a smaller one, relatively, right? I mean, it's not called a small model, but it requires, just like 0.1x of very low parameters. It's been trained on very low parameters with the similar outcomes of large models, right? And that's been compared to 3.5, and the number of parameters used is very, very low, just hardly 2 billion parameters. So I think small models will, we'll start thinking, because if the large models are getting efficient, as efficient as Google Gamma 2, then do I use small or do I use this large, which is already compressed in a way, right? And because that might be a better outcome with similar cost. So that will be a dilemma. But you're right. So the small models have to make sense, or otherwise, the point I was making was the custom models could be large, but it has to be custom for specific vertical, right? I think in US there's some investments happening in the space. Document intelligence, I think a lot of investment happened in that space. I think there's still a lot to do. I think few early investments are happening in that area also. I mean, broadly, these are the areas where some small and large investments are happening.
Right. Okay. And when you see these companies adopting AI, right, do you see any sort of resistance or constraint in terms of the whole paradigm shift, right? Because now, as an organization, also from a management perspective, or the whole mindset has to change, right? So, what is your opinion on that? How do you see the whole paradigm being shifted, and how is adoption happening there?
Look, I think enterprises have understood that there are benefits of AI, right? I mean, they're clear about it, but they're just not clear about how and what, right? I mean, how do I bring those benefits, and where and what exactly I do to get those benefits? So I think in terms of mind shifting, I think they're getting prepared as there are benefits. They are early adopting AI. But I don't think the whole organization is going behind it, right? Obviously, there are innovation departments, as you would know. There are specific teams where they feel that they're low-hanging fruits. So they're preparing themselves for that, right? But I think one of the biggest concerns still exists is they don't have skilled talent, and our enterprise is investing a lot into reskilling or skilling their teams and talent. I think that is yes and no, and in some cases the answer is yes. In some cases they're still lagging behind because they're not clear. If I reskill, if I upskill so many people, what's the advantage I'm going to get? In clear terms. Broadly, they know the benefits, but how exactly and what exactly and where exactly, I think that's still an exploration, right? So I think that's how enterprises are thinking about it. That's how their mind shifting is happening. But I think people are really aware of the benefits of AI this time. It's slightly more clearer in adopting AI. And then as they accelerate more, I think they're getting more and more convinced. But I think it's still a journey to go after, right? So it's not going to be a quick one.
Yeah, and then there's the whole pressure of ROI, transparency. How do you measure the outcomes of that?
Yes,
right?
Correct. And considering because it's so expensive. I mean, LLMs are going cheap now, but the hardware is still very expensive in a way, in different ways. So if you have to do your own implementation with your own data center, with your own GPUs, then it's tough, right? It's still very expensive. And people are definitely asking ROI for that. So, right.
Yeah, and we are talking about this whole training part, right? For automating, for setting the processes, training the data, and everything. So when we talk about this, there also with AI comes a bigger responsibility as well, right? We do often hear surveys, studies talking about the biasness, talking about the accuracy of data, right? How do you validate this? How do you prevent hallucinations in these models?
Correct.
So and plus, how do you make sure that you are ensuring or taking the responsibility of AI that you are considering within your scope or parameters? So what's your say on that?
No, absolutely. I think after this adoption and acceleration, these are the concerns now, because they've adopted it. In some cases, they've got the outcomes, but this is a post-mat of implementing the whole AI, and now they're asking obviously whether and how secure it is. They're asking how ethical it is in terms of biasness. They're asking, is there a right governance around it? Yes or no, which is where the responsible AI comes in, and things like those, right? How transparent it is, what's the data risk around it, right? Is there any data which is coming out which was not supposed to come out? So I think post implementations now, because last 14-18 months people have implemented, adopted, some have accelerated, and people who have adopted and accelerated are now getting into that zone of post implementation and figuring out this. But I think this is now on the top of the mind since last 14-18 months. Earlier it was not that much. There were apprehensions around it, but now because people implemented, that has become a key KPI to measure about any implementation, right? So now people are pre-ascertaining the impact in those fields of implementing AI, which was earlier was post-ascertaining after the implementation of AI, right? I think right now it's on the top of the mind.
Yeah, no wonder there are so many lawsuits filed against against bigger companies, right? In terms of the data transparency.
Yes, that's right, correct. And I think Europe is making it tougher because of the GDPR rules and the new AI regulations. Apple delayed their Apple Intelligence in launch in Europe. Not only enterprises, the end users and customers, and at the same point of time, regulatory bodies are going to be very concerned about these areas, right? So, and that's why everybody wants to implement, as I'm saying, are ascertaining these areas first, as opposed to keeping it later.
So Akash, you have been handling Chase Travelty and Loyal program, and since travel industry now booming to an extent that you've seen now post-COVID how people have entered into a real life as well as the real life of it, right? And there are so many travel plans happening and people like really taking life to a work-life balance. So what is your experience when you implemented the whole program, and how was it? And how did you use AI in terms of accelerating the whole innovation part?
So I think there are pieces where some of them were very direct and some of them were indirect. Like itinerary planning was the most suitable experience which can be utilized using AI and give a better experience to the end users, right? I mean, basis where do you want to go, and using your destination and maybe your past travel histories, what could be your suitable itinerary, right? As an example, it was a very direct use case, most loved kind of experience by the end users as well, because that helps them automate, that helps them save time in discovering a lot of things and things like those, right? Secondly, personalized experiences, right? So if you want to personalize travel experiences, right? So again, basis your past history, your behavior, your visits and things like those. And if you want to go somewhere, then how do you personalize? And that personalization could be in other terms as well, right? If you're a green conscious user, then can you get hotels which are green, as an example, right? And things like this. I think personalization and itinerary planning were the two direct use cases which were very useful in travel industry. Then customer service, by the way, in travel, as you know, people call you a lot of times for rescheduling, for cancellations, for flight delays and things like those, right? I mean, that's one of the most busiest, I would say, use case from a customer standpoint. And then you have to be very, very fast. And then you have to have the real-time data, right? Because in flight scheduling, in flight delays, the customer support agents needs that data of real time. So how do you use AI to get all that data in clean data, by the way, and build insights on top of it, so that agents, because you can't throw just random data to agents and then expecting them to learn it and then respond, because here the users were getting so angry already, right? They're already frustrated. You have like very short amount of time to pacify them and also help them. And also make the changes if required, right? So for that, how do you use AI to get the right insights, and then and also generate scripts, by the way, using that, so that agents can use those scripts and talk. So I think those were 3 direct use cases where I think there was good ROI. And now as we move forward, there are a lot to be done, right? And there are newer use cases which will come up. How do you have local insights when you are at a particular destination? How do you design loyalty programs basis the right behaviors and patterns which are not static in nature, as an example, and that's maybe ever dynamic in nature, basis your different behavior patterns, actions, transactions, and things like those. And many of
catering to personal attributes or demographics.
Absolutely correct. So I think those newer, as things get more matured, I think more and more things will come over there. How can you use social to the advantage of bringing some experiences on your travel portals, right? As an example. So I think those are some of the areas where AI will be utilized in different ways. In terms of content generation, by the way, right? Because in travel you have to show a lot of content. There are a lot of reviews, right? So Gen AI is very apt for utilizing those contents and also auto-create contents. I said scripts was an example for customer agents, using reviews, understanding the sentiments, and basis that you presenting other content to the users. So in a lot of areas where some of these use cases will come more and more profound as we go forward. So.
True, yeah. Okay. So coming to the last segment of it, if you had to leave the audience with one thing, that what would that be?
What should you do in AI?
Or in terms of adoption.
No, I think I would. I think that's the right way to ask. I would say yes. I think just learn about AI right now, because AI is going to have massive impact over a long term on a lot of us, especially humans. So you have to understand AI, and you have to coordinate with AI. I think there will be a time come in next 10-15 years where there will be massive influence and impact of AI. Something would be good, something would not be good, and the only people who are coordinating with AI, I feel that will become more of an assistant to them versus they're becoming assistant to us. There could be possibility in some cases. Maybe it's slightly far-fetched. But I think unless you understand AI well, and unless you can coordinate with AI well, it will be tough for a lot of humans. So I would say please upskill yourself in various ways, right? Just learn about AI right now. Very, very super important for everybody.
Yeah, can't agree more to that. Okay. Thank you so much, Akash.
My pleasure.
It was great talking to you today.
Likewise.
How was your experience overall?
No, great. I think one important thing is this should help people who are watching in understanding, in implementing, and be cautious where they're implementing so that they can save dollars. You're a data expert, right? So you know a lot. So I think the questions were very direct. Thanks for very interactive podcast. I loved it. And SEEP is the heart of Pune. So always pleasure to be part of SEEP and help the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So that was Akash sharing some wonderful insights with us in terms of enterprise AI adoption, acceleration, and the barriers that we face today with MNCs and the IT industry. Having said that, in order to conclude, and my key takeaways from this conversation being, while we continue to scale, innovate, adopt, and grow, it is also important to kind of balance the trade-off between, let's say, coherence and creativity, fluency and diversity, and accuracy and novelty, right? So that's all for today. Stay tuned for our next podcast. Thank you so much.